Well, this feels a bit unusual. I haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not even sure what to do.
Neither am I.
Well, if you can see my face and or hear my voice, you know it means only one thing. That's right. We're back. It's the Too Many Guys soccer show. Big as life, twice as ugly. Getting kicked off again, hopefully getting into more of a flow this time around as we start the new year. We took our winter break, which turned into pretty much a fall and winter break, but we're back now. I'm joined as I am every show by my faithful companion in all things podcasting, who looks like he's relaxing on a beach. Those sunglasses are kind of creeping me out a little bit. I'm getting like a serious like Hannibal Lecter vibe off of it, and I'm not 100% sure. Or maybe it's like Woody Harrelson from Natural Born Killers. There's definitely like a serial killer vibe with that going on. Like
Absolutely.
you definitely got the evil professor thing
Well,
going.
let me try these. These are the basic ones. Everybody's seen these before. Those are kind of lame.
No, the other ones were better.
Yeah, all right.
Now you look like you're straight out of the 80s.
Yeah,
You
it's
look
true.
like straight out of
Max
the 80s.
Headroom or something.
Yeah. Instead, how goes it in well, I know that you're ostensibly in Atlanta, but it looks like with the background, you're chilling on a beach someplace in the Caribbean with the waves
Yeah.
slowly rolling in behind you.
Yeah. This is my fantasy of what I wish my winter holiday was. But no, I was, of course, stuck in my house for 3 weeks with two children who were out of school and a lovely wife who was sick. And both of my children and my wife were sick all holiday. So it was a very long break, but everybody's fine now. And I'm happy to be back. And so I'm putting this background up. I got my shades on because this was the original plan for our holidays that I guess I would say fortunately fell through because it would have been really worse had we taken our trip and had two or three sick people the entire time we were gone. But I'm gonna act like I'm putting my feet up, drinking something cold and just for that, I probably shouldn't be wearing a hooded sweatshirt. I probably should have on like
Yeah,
a,
yeah, you should
you
be.
know, nice Bahama Mama t-shirt or something like that, nice button
Well,
up with some flow, some Don Ho shirt.
I'm up here in the lovely DC area. Got up to a balmy 40 degrees, which was a noticeable improvement because yesterday morning when I woke up, it was 11.
Yeah, it was 12 here yesterday
Mhm.
morning. Yeah, it's 12 degrees.
I
Yeah.
am not a big fan of the temperature when the temperature's so low it hasn't even gone through puberty yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I was telling myself, I was like, we moved down here to get away from that. And,
Mhm.
and it said, nope, not yet. Got a couple of days of this. But don't worry, down here it's going to be 65 on Thursday. So at
Yeah,
least
it's
we'll
going to
have
be
that.
60 here on
Yeah.
Saturday. So,
Yeah.
any weather related benefit that the Baltimore Ravens were going to get via their home game against the Chiefs, nah, not so much.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, you saw what the Chiefs game was like a couple weeks ago, and it was like -4. So, if anything, not
I
going to
was
get much of an
down at,
advantage there.
yeah, that was Martin Luther King Day weekend. I was down with G down in New Orleans going
Mhm.
around, and it was chilly down there. I actually had to wear a jacket.
Wow. Look,
Hmm.
that is a different level of hot I've ever experienced was in New Orleans. And
Well, we don't go down in the summer, and
yeah, that was something
he
else, man.
was he was telling us just how bad it was. And you were down there in August, which was
Yeah,
when it was, yeah.
yeah. It was, I woke up, I had a tour, a bus tour in New Orleans, and it was I was up at, of course they're an hour behind and my body clock woke me up. So I was up at about 7 New Orleans time. And I pulled out my phone to see what the weather was, and it was 88 degrees at
Mhm.
7 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't
And
believe it.
because
I
it's
was
a
like, oh
swamp,
my God.
and because it's a swamp, the heat just kind of lays
It
there.
lays there.
It
Yeah,
can't
it's a
go
blanket.
anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. You walk outside and you feel it pressing down on you. And you're just
Hmm.
standing there like, okay, I guess that's why you can walk
Yeah.
in the streets and drink here because this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a lot different when you go down in January and you're like, hey, I don't have to wear the thermal underwear anymore.
Hmm.
So it was a nice trip. We ate all the food. We did the
Yeah,
French Quarter.
yeah.
really great. Heard some really good music.
Hmm.
Stopped in and watched the Spurs United game,
That's cool.
which fortunately did not end up being the bloodbath that I had anticipated.
Yeah. Look,
Uh,
man, United have won 10 games, which is surprising considering they've
yeah,
only
but they
scored
also lost
24
14.
goals. They've only scored 24 goals, but they've won 10 games after only playing 24 goals. That's, I don't know. And they're in eighth place. I'm sorry.
That's what I
It's
still
so
can't get
shocking.
over.
I can't get over it. You look at it and you're like, wow, United's in eighth place. Like, what's it's just because,
But then you also
yes.
look at it, and there are literally two games. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm not saying that they will only win two games the rest of the season.
Mhm.
But when you look at their records and their trends, there are only two games the rest of the season where I can reasonably be confident and say that they should
Mhm.
win this.
Mhm.
And those are games against Luton and Sheffield United, who are the two
Yeah.
bottom teams in the league.
Right.
And even Sheffield United gave them a tough time
They
because
did.
United only have what you could consider to be, I guess, two positive results: a win against Chelsea and that win on Boxing Day against Villa.
Mhm.
Two positive results, and then if you consider the draws against Spurs and Liverpool,
Liverpool.
yeah, those are the only four um, results that they have that aren't losses against teams that are above them in
Mhm.
the table, and they damn sure can't beat anybody on the road.
Yeah.
Uh, we've already seen that against Nottingham Forest. So
Mhm.
you know, if you are like, okay, well, I don't expect them to beat anybody. Basically all your road games except for the bottom two teams at the table are basically, you know, 50-50 and pick them, and you're not going to beat anybody else above the table, then you're definitely not on the road.
Right.
There's two games left out of the remaining, what is it, 18 games left in the
Mhm.
season that you could reasonably say, okay, this team could definitely win.
Mhm.
But, the sale going through the way that it did right before Christmas, um, I know that the financial fair play stuff is going to present them from being active in the transfer window, but you know, transitioning just slightly, instead, we're about 10 days left in the transfer window, maybe less, actually only eight.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was looking through the transfers that have been completed over this. There's like none.
No. This is the quietest January I can remember. And
And
granted, I haven't paid too close of attention, but even then, there's really not really anything of any real note that's happened at all. But also the rumor mill's pretty quiet.
and I look at the Premier League, and I know that they put in some more stringent financial rules. And now you're hearing teams like even Newcastle complain about like having to sell to buy.
Hmm.
And you just realize, like, okay, they did all the business that they were going to be able to do in the summer, and unless you get a loan signing or something like that, um, I don't think anything's really going to happen.
Hmm.
And it seems like what you're seeing is way more outgoings than incomings,
Hmm.
and even the outgoings aren't. They're things that I hate to say it, they're players that used to be big names, but now and whose names would have moved the radar maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, but definitely aren't now.
Hmm.
Jadon Sancho's been anonymous for the last couple of years.
Hmm.
You know, Eric Dyer went to Bayern Munich, and I forgot that he was even on Spurs still.
Yeah, for real. That's
Um,
right.
Arturo Vidal's in Chile, and he swapped teams in Chile, but I forgot that he was even. I thought he'd
I
retired.
thought he retired. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, there's talk that Karen, Jordan Henderson. It seems like
Hmm.
what we thought was going to happen is starting to happen, where more and more
Yeah.
these
Same
big
with
name
Karim
players are
Benzema.
starting to leave. To be honest, I would love to have Benzema on a loan deal at Manchester United,
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
but I
Absolutely.
just
He's still a killer, man. He can still put it in.
yeah, I just don't think that there's any desire there for him to come to the Premier League and work with Eric Ten Hag.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that said. maybe he wants to work with Arteta. I'm guessing he might be familiar with him, even
Hmm.
though they never played together properly.
Hmm.
Like he's
Hmm.
been in and around, with the length of time that Karim Benzema was in at Real Madrid, and Arteta being in Spain and being around, maybe he's familiar with him. Maybe he's seen what he's doing over in Arsenal, and that's a
Hmm.
possibility.
Right.
But that doesn't seem like an Arsenal type move. But then again,
Yeah.
that's the type of move that you would need to make if you want to capitalize and have a go at what looks to be a more vulnerable than we expected Man City team, although they are going to round back and form because you can't imagine that Erling Haaland's going to stay out
Yeah. You
for long.
can't.
And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think that the teams around them put enough distance in between them when KDB was out.
Right, right, right. Well, the teams had the chance too when Man City had stubbed their toe too. They have their opportunities, but look at what happened to Arsenal. I mean, you can't lose to West Ham and Fulham in back-to-back games and think you're going to compete with when Man City is going to get the wheel going again. And
Mhm.
so I think if anything, I could see Benzema if let's say had Arsenal beaten Fulham. You know, if you beat Fulham, that gives you the extra 3 points. You're now sitting firmly at a tie with City. You could see, yeah, okay, maybe you might do a move that's not fitting of Arsenal right now, which is to go get, kind of go get a mercenary that can come in and give you what you need on the short term. But I don't know, man. It seems like the wind is out of Arsenal's sails, especially losing already out of the FA Cup, where I was very adamant that was like the Arsenal has to win something this year. And you're out of the FA Cup. It's like, okay, you're going, what are you gonna do, win Champions League? Like, oh, I don't know. you know what? Yeah, exactly. Like, so I don't see them. I just don't see Arsenal doing a mercenaries type move when that's not been their bread and butter recently, where they're clearly building to be a competitive team for a very long time and would not want a guy who's 35 when they'd rather get a guy who's 25, and they seem to not have too much of an issue paying a little bit of money right now. So I just don't see it happening, and I don't see Arteta really wanting to make that move.
I mean, the one that we always hear with Arsenal is Ivan Toney, and
Yeah.
yeah, did he have a return to the Premier League? Say what you will about that goal. It's kind of a little bit cheeky to move the
Hmm.
ball into a different zip code on a free kick like he did. But if the
that's
refs don't stop him, then what can you do?
that's true.
But then he also had the delivery and put the ball on net. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know what was going on with that wall because he just went right around them.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I mean,
The wall,
they
because
need,
the wall could have adjusted too, and they didn't.
yeah.
Mm.
And if you saw the scenes before at Brentford, I mean, it was like a WWE match. I thought they were
Hmm.
introducing some combination of the Undertaker and Roy Jones Jr.
Which is very odd. That's not Brentford. That's not really their MO, it's Brentford. They're on the beach. They're supposed to be
It's
chilling.
they're supposed to be chill, but I guess like they're hyped because it's been 200 days, it's been 9 months.
Hmm.
He is their identity, and Ivan Toney, who's scoring goals, is going to be what keeps them above the relegation zone.
Hmm.
And then, presumably his sale at the end of the season, because I can't see him staying there for too much longer, would,
No, and he shouldn't because he's you get to the other side of 30, man, forget it.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's what you don't realize, that he's not that far away from 30 as it is
Hmm.
right now.
Right. I think he's like 28, 29, I think.
Yeah, maybe 27.
Oh, he's
Um,
27. Okay. All right. He'll be
yeah,
28 in
but I mean,
March. It's coming. He'll
he'll
be
be
28 in
28.
March.
He's
Yeah.
coming.
Mm.
So it's not old, but he's not young, right?
Yeah.
So even if you sign him right now, you're probably getting what you hope you could bank on to be about 4 years
Hmm.
of top form.
Hmm.
Maybe he reaches another gear and you can get him for, you can squeeze another 3 or 4 out of him. But,
Yeah.
you're likely, if you're buying him, you're going to get one contract legit.
Yeah, let's not forget this guy spent the majority of his career in League One and the championship. So
Mhm.
he's not pedigree as far as
And
I'm not
look, though,
discounting him, but
Jamie Vardy had
I
a
was about to say
really nice
maybe he could turn
run.
into Jamie Vardy. Maybe he could turn into Jamie Vardy because Jamie
Yeah,
Vardy
I
was
mean,
very
Jamie
good after
Vardy
the
had
age
a
of 30.
great run, and he was
Absolutely.
like the ageless wonder
Absolutely, absolutely, and
until he wasn't.
that's the hope. Yeah, that's the hope. But Arsenal went after Vardy. But that's you have to say for Ivan Toney, that's his ceiling is Jamie Vardy,
Mhm.
which is a great ceiling to be. Great
It's a
ceiling.
great
It's a
ceiling to be. I guess
fantastic
the
ceiling.
question, Jamie Vardy has what, a Champions League quarterfinal appearance
Mm-hmm.
and a Premier League winners medal
Yep,
for
and an
him
FA Cup.
and an FA Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not a bad pull.
shoot, to be honest, that's more than Manchester United has won during his career. So
Look,
I take
that's
him.
it's true. Arsenal may have won more trophies, but not a league title. And don't forget, they have a bunch of FA Cups through a quick little stretch run when Arsene Wenger was trying to make it seem like it was worthwhile to keep him all those years. So it's hey, look, if Ivan Toney can beat Jamie Vardy, because look, he did get 20 last year. He got
Mhm.
20. That's good. That's good. And he got 12 in his first season in the Premier League. I got his page up right here. So all right, he's proven that he can score. But let's see though, put him on a big team and see what he does. I mean, we all saw what happened to Zaha when he went to Manchester United. That blew up
I
so
think,
fast. And
but that was also,
I hate to equate them, but you have to kind of equate them a little bit. A little bit.
yeah, but I think that also Zaha moved a lot younger,
Yeah, that's true.
and um, he was being purchased by one coach and then asked to play for another in a
Mm-hmm.
completely different system.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't fair to
And
Zaha.
I don't think that he ever got the training
Yeah.
that
Well,
you need to be able to develop.
yeah, and he was smart to just go back. I
Mhm.
thought the very smart decision for his career. Just go back.
And but I think that the thing was, though, because he went back, um, he kind of never got that opportunity again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether that was by choice or by circumstance, there were all these rumors about him potentially going to Spurs that seemed to come up
And
year,
Arsenal.
and they just never materialized.
Mm-hmm.
And was that a case of, Crystal Palace just making some really bad financial decisions and not cashing in on him when they
Mm-hmm.
could have?
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about a play, or he just not being willing, and then by the time he was, what was it? The only thing that was there was like um the Far East and Turkey.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, that's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
um, and for how many years it was basically all right, 10 men behind the ball. Um, he was kind of like Randall Cunningham was under uh, 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 back in the day, where it was like, hey, you run around and do what you need to do and get us a couple of points and let the defense keep it up.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, where is he? He's at Galatasaray. So,
Yeah, I wanted to
well,
say
at least
Galatasaray.
he'll win. He'll win something there.
Beat Man United earlier this
Yeah,
season.
yeah. He'll get a trophy somewhere.
He should. He could get
Yeah.
a trophy. They'll be in the Champions League again next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you feel like, hey, it would have been. And as a result, he kind of missed his window to play potentially for the U.S. for the England team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he was playing Cote d'Ivoire. I don't know
Yeah.
how that experiment. I don't even know if he's with them right
I'm
now.
not sure he is. Let me check. I mean, he's played over 30 games for them.
Mhm.
So is he currently on their squad? Let me check. Let me see. No, he's not on their squad. He's not for AFCON. He's not on the squad.
Yeah, I think that they went with a slightly younger squad
Younger, yeah. This is a very young team.
and
Their oldest striker is
kind of
Sebastian Haller, who's 29. So
yeah, and I kind of aged him out of that.
mhm.
And I think there was some pushback on the fact that he was even playing for them
Yeah, yeah, there
because it was
was.
like what do you actually have invested in Cote d'Ivoire?
Right. Yeah, there was some pushback from the Cote d'Ivoire end. They were
Mhm.
kind of like, well, is this guy truly going to upgrade for us? I mean, and I understand that. they got loads of talent coming out of there. They don't need to
But the
beg for
guys who
somebody who traded in England to
traditionally,
come play for them.
yeah, and they don't feel the need to get mercenaries, and the guys who have
Hmm.
traditionally represented them, like the Didier Drogba's and the Torre brothers,
Hmm.
were, for lack of a better way to put it, they were Cote d'Ivoirian through and through.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I
I mean,
don't even,
yes, he was born there, but I mean, when his
but
family
does
moved,
he speak the
that was
language?
it. He didn't really, yeah, he
Yeah.
just doesn't present as Cote d'Ivoire through and through. No, not at all. And
And,
it was also clear too that, like, let's say Didier Drogba, he knew who he was playing for.
mhm.
Yaya Toure knew which country he was playing for. Had Zaha been actually called up continually for England, this never would have happened.
But you're seeing that with more and more African teams, the more and more of the established ones are trying to focus more and more on their own
Yeah.
players, and there's this sense
Hmm.
of um, even we're seeing a shift in the coaching,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Trying to get more homegrown coaches through. And
Hmm.
I'm all for it, right?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
We've seen it work, and we will continue to sing the praises of Alu Cisse.
Hmm.
I've said on more than one occasion, I think is the most underrated manager in
Hmm.
football.
Agreed.
And if he guides, and we'll talk to Coach Matt more about AFCON in depth in a little bit, but if he guides them to another African Cup of Nations tournament
Yeah.
title and
Hmm.
somebody does not pick him up,
Yeah.
I'm baffled. Like,
Yeah.
what does this guy need to do?
Right.
And again, he's not young, but he's also not old. He's
Not
46.
old. Yeah. I mean, that's give me he's a baby in coaching years, but also, but like you know, and don't be surprised if you see Yaya Toure coaching at Ivory Coast. Let's not forget he's assistant coaching at Saudi Arabia right now.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's really out of the out of the realm possibility to see by the next AFCON cycle if he's not the coach of that team.
So,
Because look,
but
that's
that
a
could have been the good end.
internationally known player. Like
Mhm.
everybody knows Yaya Toure.
But just because you are an internationally known player doesn't mean that you're going to be an internationally great manager. I think it's,
Understood, but what I'm saying is he's getting his teeth cut right now, which is
yeah.
great. He's getting a lot of managerial opportunities, especially at an international level, for a team that may not be the darlings of their confederation, but is highly competitive. He's not
Mhm.
assistant coaching Singapore. So I mean, it's
Mhm.
Saudi Arabia. I mean, they got some ballers down there,
They're
man.
they're in the
They're in the
Asia
Asia
Cup
Cup
right
right
now.
now. Yeah. So
But then on the flip side, I am shocked that Song still has a job at Cameroon, and the only reason that he does is because he's Samuel Eto'o's buddy.
that's that's
And if you
very
saw
true.
the pictures of Samuel Eto'o, I have a lot of respect for Samuel Eto'o as a
Hmm.
player. I think that he was a fantastic player. I think that he knew exactly who and what he was,
Hmm.
and he genuinely did not care what you thought about him.
Hmm.
And for a while, he was probably one of the best strikers, pure number nines in the world. He
In the
wasn't
world. Yep.
necessarily the biggest guy, but man, was he lethal. But we know he's not the easiest person in the world to get along with.
Hmm.
And when you see him just kind of sitting up there in the owner's box, just kind of like with that smirk on his face,
Hmm.
as everything goes to pop below him, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You were the one who said, called all the African footballers and challenged them to come back and invest in Africa and build up African football. And, we can do this. We have enough money. We have the expertise. Now's the time to transition back to, let us take care of this. And right now, you're as much the problem as you are the solution.
Hmm. 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 It's I don't know. I Samuel Eto'o has been, how can I say this without sounding completely idiotic, but it just seems like his some of the arrogance you saw in his later years is still there. I think about when he was on Chelsea and he wasn't playing well. His form was pretty poor, and it just seemed as he was just as a player who just felt like because of what he did at Inter and because of what he did at Barcelona, that he was, I don't want to say above coaching, but it just seemed like his the investment just wasn't there. And you can look at his numbers, you can just look at his statistics. They just weren't there. But that kind of thing is like when you're still kind of hanging on to what you did 20 years ago till now, is it's just not, it's not.
By the time he got to Chelsea, he'd won the Champions League with Barcelona. He'd won the Champions League the next year with
Mhm.
um
I believe he won the
Inter,
treble with Inter.
yeah,
Yeah.
under Jose Mourinho.
Hmm.
And he had gotten to that point where he was like, I won what I came to do. I've got the
Hmm.
reputation, and now I'm just
Hmm.
about my money.
Right.
And that was
Right.
all it was. Because remember, he took that stupid contract to play in for Anji
Anzi Makachala. Yeah.
and he was basically living in Italy and commuting to
Mm.
Moscow to play
Which
for
was
them.
great. And then flying down to Anzi for the games. And that's a 1,500-mile journey. It's not like Russia's a
Yeah,
small
but it was
country.
like, but they played more games in Moscow than they did in Dagestan.
Yep. Hmm. Yep. And if you go to Dagestan, man, you should be going there to practice your MMA fight. That's what they're known for.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, and we ended up seeing how that whole thing worked. What, it lasted like 2 years, and then
Oh, it was a
all of them are gone.
disaster. Roberto Carlos was there too, I believe. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
disaster. There's a really good little documentary short on what happened there. It's pretty fascinating. It's very I guess stereotypical Russia when you think about the kind of the league systems and how it falls right in there, man. Guy with a bunch of money who's like, I'm gonna do this. And Russia, they're just like, sure, go ahead.
but and then it was like, but it was then like, the oil money, the price of oil dropped, and so
Hmm.
they had no more
And no
money, and
money,
those
yeah.
guys had to go, and it was a fire sale. And that's why when we talk about, even the Saudi league, and we're seeing the guys slowly, I guess, back out of it. It's like, I've seen this movie before. I just want to
Yeah.
know how quick. I don't know how long it is.
Yeah, this movie last took place in China. So,
We saw it with Anzi. We saw it with the Chinese Super League. Now we're seeing it to a certain extent um
Saudi
with the
Arabia,
Saudi Pro
yeah.
League.
Mm, yeah.
And these guys who took the money, and what the funny thing is, it seems like they're very, very upset about the sort of the obligations,
Well,
the off-field obligations, because
yeah,
they feel like they're being paraded around. And my question to them is, when you took the money, you had to know that was what it was about.
this is sports washing. It's obvious. Dude, it's pretty, you saw what happened in China.
Hmm.
So with Ronaldo, and there was a riot in the hotel for the team because he didn't play. So, and now not only he's contractually as you said, he's contractually obligated to play. So at this point now they have to redo the tour when he's healthy
Well,
because
and then there's
he
also that,
needs to be
because
there and play.
but the other one is, he's also going to miss this friendly with Lionel Messi,
Oh,
and that
really?
probably cannot be rescheduled.
Yeah, no. No. Yeah, this is gonna get bad. I'm sorry, this is bad. This is only gonna get worse. This is only
Well,
gonna get. I didn't know that.
yeah, well, they're already forecasting that by the time, by the nature of the injury and how long it's going to take him to heal, that he's likely not going to play, because that was going to be a preseason friendly for the.
Hmm.
I guess it was going to be like one of their first home games and all kickoff games, like something. It was going to be a preseason friendly, clearly at Fort Lauderdale,
Hmm.
because I guess they're still building that stadium down there,
Yeah,
or that's who
probably. I don't
owns.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't look like he's going to play. So then there's that. But uh, you know, I don't think that's going to be one that they can reschedule, because when would you do it? You'd have to do it in the summer.
Well, yeah. And I it'd be difficult to do because I just don't think I don't see MLS as clamoring for that game like I would see um Saudi Arabia and their tour of China, you know.
Well, it's not MLS that clamors for those games, but we know they used to do more of them than they do now.
That's very true. I mean, we've been to a few of those, and
Well, one of
yeah,
the
you're
issues
right.
was
I didn't
they
really know. My MLS in the last couple of years, due to circumstance, my MLS focus has dwindled significantly. Partly because DC United was never all that good since the Wayne Rooney year, and even then, that was just more of exciting than they were actually good. And so, hopefully, that now that I'm down in with an MLS franchise that seems to care about winning, that hopefully that will change. But
we'll see. There's massive turnover. I was talking about that
yeah,
with my guy down there last
hmm
week. That's going to look like a whole entire different new team.
yeah,
But it used to be a big thing to get the teams that were coming over on tour to play, and it was actually like an extra home game in the season ticket package when I had season
hmm
tickets for the Union.
hmm
One of the games, it was a 16 game home package, or it was a 17 game home package. The 18th game was the club friendly, right?
hmm
So you'd automatically get tickets, and they would get. One year it was Everton,
hmm
Aston Villa.
Okay.
Um, they did one against United one time, but now there's been a kind of a split in between MLS and this ICC, this International Champions Cup, which are the tour games that we get over here, Arsenal,
hmm
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
hmm But they mostly play each other.
Well, I think that at one point in time, the guys who were behind that sort of thing were trying to push for, like international games over. They were the ones trying to be able to stage um, meaningful international games, be able to promote
hmm
meaningful international games over here.
hmm
Like
hmm
they were essentially trying to do what Saudi Arabia did with um, the Super Copa
hmm
and staged that over here. And they basically got shut down by U.S. Soccer, so
Oh, really?
they don't have the proper license to
Okay.
be able to from FIFA to be able to stage competitive fixtures over here.
Okay.
So the only thing that they can do is this international tour, but they sell it to teams as it's a big time money spinning thing.
hmm
And why should I, Manchester United, make a fraction trying to fill up um, the link to play against a Philadelphia Union team that's going to be who knows what in the
hmm
middle of the season
hmm
when I can get a team that's on my level and is in the same part of the season as I am.
hmm
Because gone are the days where you're going to get Chelsea versus um, LA Galaxy really anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw Real Madrid versus DC United, and that was 15 years ago, I
Mhm.
think. Now, great experience. Is that our it was at the the worst thing that they call a stadium. It was at FedEx Field, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was great to see the local team play against the Giants. They lost like 4-1, but they got a one.
Mhm.
It was fun. I had a really, really good time at that game. But, you know, I get it though, why it's not happening anymore. I mean, I guess I understand. I don't really like it, but again, as you said though, Real Madrid played like Ronaldo was out about 40 minutes.
Mhm.
You saw, I think they had one guy who played the full game. They had one guy who played the match. And it was also, this is the worst part about it too. It was July, 95 degrees, I
Yeah, we
think.
went up
And it
about.
was hot. And it was the middle of the day. It was like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a hot day.
It would have to be about 2008, 2009,
Yeah, I think so.
when
I think it
Rob
was
Profit
2009. It was
got us tickets
2009.
to go
Yeah.
see Barcelona play New York Red Bulls.
Yeah, because I think it was the same year. I think it was
Yeah,
'09.
and
Yeah.
they rolled out um, Thierry Henry,
hmm
Samuel Eto'o played. I remember distinctly Samuel Eto'o would not sign Barcelona jerseys.
Oh,
He
really?
signed Cameroon jerseys. He did
Oh.
not sign Barcelona jerseys.
Oh,
And it was like
interesting.
7-1.
Jeez.
And that was the year I think that they went on to win. No, it was not the year that they went on to win the Champions League. I don't think,
Mm,
because I don't think that might have been.
yeah.
I think that was a couple of years later that they went on and beat Manchester United,
Manchester
but that
United,
was
yeah.
towards the end of that, because
I
I
think that
can't
was Henri's
remember
last
whether
year with them
Ronaldinho
too.
was on that team. No, Ronaldinho wasn't on that team.
No, but I think that was Henri's last year on that team.
No, that was Henri's first year.
Was it his first year, really?
Yeah, he was a
Okay.
brand new player. And
Okay.
the reason why was because Lionel Messi was a rumor more than a fully formed human being at that point in time.
Let me look this up. Let me see. When did they win that Champions League? 'Cause now I'm curious. Um,
Yeah, it was.
that was his last year.
No, but I'm talking about when he won when they played the New York Red Bulls. It was right before
Hmm.
his first season with Barcelona. It was not.
Oh, okay. So that was not the year. Okay.
Yeah, because it was like Messi's second season in the
Yeah,
first
they won
team.
Champions League in '09. Okay.
Okay, then it was that.
That was his second year with
Yeah,
Barcelona was when they won. Okay.
then it was that year. Um,
Okay.
it was that year
Okay.
because '08 was when Manchester United came to or was it? No.
Yeah, they won the treble that year because they won La Liga, Copa del Rey, and Champions League that year in '09. Barcelona did.
It's just it's all I'm
It's
trying
so blurry. It's
it's so
so
blurry
blurry. Thank
because
God for Wikipedia, man.
it might have been that year, it might not have been, but they all
Yeah.
start to run together after a while. It
Yeah.
probably was because I have a hard time remembering but it was the next year that I went to see um what you call Manchester United. So it was the year that Manchester United won the Champions League.
Hmm.
So that would have
Hmm.
been '08 that
Okay.
we played against the played against um the against the Red Bulls, because it was the year that Manchester United won the Champions League.
Hmm.
Um, and because the following year, the year after, was when Manchester United came to play the Philadelphia Union.
Okay.
The only reason I remember this was because I was working a different job that summer.
Oh, got you. Yeah, okay.
All right, I didn't start at the Constitution Center until August of 2009, and so that would have been the year that would have been the year. So it would have been 2010 when the Union came.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We got a guest.
I digress.
Yeah. Happy New Year,
Reminiscing
brother.
about the good old days.
New Year's,
Yeah.
friends.
Speaking of good old days, there was a really great World Cup in 2010 when I asked one Professor Matt to come down and watch because they were throwing a block party at Fidel and Philly where they shut down uh, Locust Street in between 15th and 16th. And I took Matt down with me. I had her on a really great costume. And I just remember getting off the bus and he's like, "What are you doing walking around here looking like Frito Bandito with the bandana and the boonie cap on?" And a great time was had by all. Welcome, Professor Matt. How goes it, my good friend?
It goes well, guys. Happy New Year. Good to be back in the saddle. Hope all is well.
We've just been kind of shooting a breeze, talked a little
Yeah.
bit about the transfer window, about old friendlies and why tours like that aren't happening, the exodus, the lack of transfers. We're talking a little bit about the African Cup of Nations, and I know that you've been following that pretty devoutly. So I wanted to wait for you to get on to go into that in depth. But gentlemen, we've talked about the fact that we love collectively The African Cup of Nations, as far as like international tournaments go,
Mhm.
it's definitely
It's number
not the
three.
World Cup,
It's
but
number three though. After the Euro and I mean, look, let me ask
I
you
don't know
this.
whether sometimes I get more excited about the African Cup of Nations or I do the Euros.
Well, let me ask
To
you
be
this though.
honest,
Would you put AFCON ahead of the Copa America, considering how the Copa America doesn't it's always in such disarray anyway. It's like they just kind of do it when they feel like it.
I would put it above the Copa America because the like the names in Copa America are extremely entertaining. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh my gosh, it's Brazil, it's Neymar, it's Argentina, it's
Hmm.
Messi, it's Chile, it's
Hmm.
Arturo Vidal and Alexis
Hmm.
Sanchez, it's
Hmm.
Colombia with James
It's James
Rodriguez and
Rodriguez,
Luis
yeah. You
Diaz,
get
and
Uruguay with
changes
you know,
countries and
yeah.
stuff like that. But then when you actually watch the games, they're not good. And by that, I mean they're not entertaining. It's a lot of
Entertaining.
And
just
there's very
kicking each other in the legs and falling over.
Yeah. I was gonna say they're it's such the acting involved in the game is just so mind-boggling. I mean, the antics of the players, the really the officials that don't seem to have much controls of the game. It's just, yeah, it's a very difficult watch. A very difficult watch.
And if there's ever a major international tournament that we can say is chalk, it really is the Copa America because there's very rarely do you get, major upsets. And
Hmm.
one of the great things about AFCON, particularly this AFCON, is that we're seeing upsets left, right, and center.
Hmm.
I
Uh,
was gonna this tournament, Matt, has completely gone off the rails. Let's go over a couple of things.
Absolutely gone off the rails.
yeah,
Absolutely
I,
gone off the rails.
let's start with Cape Verde
Cape Verde.
topping their group, and they had a goal scored by Manchester United misfit Bebe.
Bebe, who I forgot existed.
I forgot I had either on purpose or subconsciously or accidentally forgot that that man existed, and he's scoring a goal. Um, Equatorial Guinea winning a group that has Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire in there.
That's
And
bonkers.
with the tournament's leading goal scorer,
With
who is a striker for Equatorial Guinea, but plays right back for his club in the Spanish third division. Like you
Yes,
Mm.
take that
That's
up.
probably going to change after this
yeah.
tournament. Yeah.
Um, Mauritania gets their first win
And takes a big scalp in the process.
and takes out Algeria
Hmm.
in the process.
Yeah.
So the two-time
Ooh.
champions who last won in 2019, not that long ago, and they're still boasting a team. I mean, it's a bit older,
They still
again,
got the talent though on that
Yeah.
squad. It's still there.
yeah,
Look,
but I have,
Algeria has been eating egg since that run they went on, where they didn't lose for like 2 years, and then I think
mhm.
they get bounced out of the World Cup pretty badly. Was the World Cup? I mean, if my
No,
memory
I think
serves.
They
they
didn't
got bounced out of the
qualify.
World Cup, but they
No,
had a decent run. I think they got to the
like
16.
something happened where they had this great stretch of play.
Mhm.
They won the AFCON, and then they were supposed to, and then they just went when it just completely nosedived. I
Yeah,
mean, I'll have to look that up.
yeah, but it was like 2019 where they were
Yeah,
just
oh yeah,
so
yeah. It was a
very
while
bad.
ago, but they haven't seemed to rebound it since then.
Um, but again, here's a name. There was a blast from Nabil Bentaleb came on, and I had forgotten that he
Mm.
existed.
He used to be good. He's a good player.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Ghana is coasting in the 90th minute against Mozambique and gives up two goals in injury time. And not only does that cost them the game, but it costs them the tournament. So the Black Stars were out. My favorite one is, and then you've got Senegal doing Senegal things.
Hmm.
But even in the
With a
midst of,
slightly different core.
There, look, Alucise just has them reloading
Yep.
and reloading, and
funny
they're
thing is,
not
then,
look, they're not hanging out for El Hadj Juice. Because look, I'm just gonna jump in and say this though about that is you get some of the I feel like Ghana, look, man, Suleiman Matari is long gone. You know what I mean? And who's the other guy? The guy that missed the penalty kick when Luis Suarez knocked the ball out.
Yayu brothers, both of them.
Yeah, well,
One
they're
of the
like
IU brothers,
35
Jordan was
Yeah.
still playing. Jordan was still
What was
playing.
his
He
name?
took the penalty. He
God,
took the
it's gonna
penalty.
bug. Okay, I gotta look this up. It's gonna bother me.
Michael
So I forgot.
Essien is gone.
Michael Essien's long gone.
gone.
Yeah. The Suleiman Tari's gone.
Yeah, Sulimatari's gone, and then who's the other guy? Asamoah Gyan.
Yes.
You know,
Gone.
that's the guy. He was the bomb, but he's out. You know, he's long gone. It's like they had this core of like talented players, but it just seems like I don't want to say Ghana got arrogant, but I feel like Ghana got a little like, you know.
But sometimes it's hard when you have a golden generation. And I do think when you look at the fact that they made the quarterfinals of a World Cup, they made the last 16
And they
of the
should have semi. They should have semi. They really
They
should have
should have
semifinals.
semied, and
And even though they didn't, you can still hang a feather on that. Like
they
we were
won
beating
at the
that
end
team.
of that era. At the end of that era, they did win an African Cup of Nations.
Yes,
so
they did.
I can look at that team and that generation of players. You know, the Ayew brothers, who were the youngest of that, but the Suleiman Taris, the Michael Essiens, the Asamoah Gyans, and say like,
Kevin
look,
Prince Boateng was on that squad too.
Yeah, one of the Boatengs.
Yep.
Kevin Prince.
Kevin Prince, yeah.
I can look at that team and safely say I think that they accomplished what they needed to.
Agreed.
You know, for that, and it's the same thing kind of when you're looking at like Cote d'Ivoire, right? You know, gone are the Toure brothers, gone is Didier Drogba. You know, they didn't have as good a run as you would have hoped that they would have had maybe in the World Cup, given the talent that they had. But yes, they did win
They got an AFCON.
They got an AFCON in there. You know, probably what was it? That one was the one. Was it step right after we started talking, or maybe we hadn't even met yet? The one that went 9-8 penalties.
Yes, yes, that's the one.
Them in Cameroon.
Them in Cameroon, yeah.
You know, we've talked about Cameroon, like they've been the ones who have cycled through probably the most, but still, listen, even they're down a little bit right now. I don't know what you can. I don't like Rigoberto Song as the manager. I don't think that Samuel Eto'o knows what he's doing, and the Andre Onana soap opera is just it has gone from sublime to ridiculous. Like, I would like to point out that since 1992, or since 1990, there have been a combined, prior to last, there have been a combined 6 goals scored in games between Senegal and Cameroon. In the African Cup of Nations, alone, Senegal had not scored on Cameroon in the African Cup of Nations since 1992.
Jeez.
It took them 11 minutes to do it in this tournament, and there were 4 goals in that game. I mean, everything between those two was 1-0, 1-0, 0-0, 0-0, 1-0. There was 1-2-0 game back in 1990. And that was the only multi-goal game, and he got 4. Right. So even that's how crazy this tournament has been. But you know, right now we've seen these teams, and we were having a chat in the in offline, and we were talking about it, and I said, you know, if the World Cup were next year, I would say, and you asked me, is there an African team that could win it? I would say Senegal. They had a great showing in this World Cup, and forget they did it without Sadio Mane, who at the time was at or near the top of his game, right? You know, so he's back, and they're just doing Senegal things. 8 goals in 3 games in the group stages, 1 conceded, and that one was that goal for Cameroon, and a 3-1 win. So their margin of victory in every game has been at least 2 goals.
Yeah, in terms of the pre-tournament favorites, they certainly look the most convincing. Now, granted, that group also included the Gabon, Cameroons, you know, couple teams that aren't at their best at the moment. But what do good teams do to teams they should beat? They score 3
You should
goals.
thump them, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we had
Doing
talked
what they
about
should be.
pre-tournament favorites, I mean, where would we have gone? We'd have probably gone to Egypt.
Yeah.
Morocco,
I
considering
was thinking Morocco or yeah, I was definitely thinking Morocco.
Morocco,
uh
Egypt, or Senegal.
Hmm.
yeah.
Now, if you take Mo Salah off of Egypt like you're going to because of the injury, they, if not for Ghana stubbing their toe,
Hmm.
Egypt are gone.
They're gone, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Morocco, Morocco's funny. I guess we would take Morocco because of their run in the World Cup last year. But remember, prior to that, that Morocco team was so dysfunctional and it was so
Hmm.
up and down. Like it was hard to imagine what they were actually going to show up at that World Cup and look like.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, they've been winning game. I think what are they? They've got one win and one draw.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, and they have a pretty light group, I would say.
Mhm.
You know, Zambia, you never know who's going to show up for Zambia. I mean, they got a team, but sometimes they
Zambia
just
was
don't.
actually one of the ones that I had thought might make it out of the group stage.
Yeah,
That's
but they seem
not
to they seem to go like this though,
Yeah.
you know?
The same thing can be said about DR Congo as well.
Mm. Yeah, in Tanzania, that they like track. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. So again, we're going to see some teams, at least in the last 16 of this tournament, that when we were going in, I don't think that we would have been able to pick out. Like, I think we have two. We're gonna have so we've had a game between Equatorial Guinea and Guinea-Bissau, and now Equatorial Guinea is going to play Guinea.
I was explaining this to my wife the other night. And she's, why are there three guineas? And I'm like, colonialism tax.
Yeah.
But they're not even close. And the funny thing is, I don't even think they're that close to
They
each
don't
other.
they don't border each other.
Well, two of them do.
Yeah,
Well, hold
Equatorial
on a
Guinea
second.
and Guinea-Bissau border each other.
Yes, but Guinea is north of
Is
those two
north.
countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a lot of African countries. It's
No,
like,
I'm sorry. Is it
Mm.
Guinea and Guinea-Bissau border each other? Equatorial Guinea, I think, is south of those two.
Equatorial
Isn't
Guinea.
Equatorial Guinea by
Oh,
over by Cameroon?
yeah, it's a little square.
yeah, it's right on the coast.
Yeah. So yes. All right, I'm sorry. Old
But
geography
yeah,
stats coming back
two,
again.
two,
All
two,
right.
two of them border each other, and then the third one isn't even anywhere near them.
But it's just a geographical term that was sort of applied, and then it's like you have a country now, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm,
okay. Hence the Gambia, right?
mhm.
It's like you have
Yeah.
to put the in front of it.
Right. Yes,
But
Guinea-Bissau is north of Guinea.
yes,
Okay. Yeah.
and then Equatorial Guinea is south of both of them.
South of
Yeah, Equatorial Guinea borders Gabon and Cameroon. It's a little square.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But then even like so, and then I think we probably would have said Nigeria as because they are traditionally a pretty strong African team, and
Yeah, it's like it's hard to not pick them for something, you know.
it's hard not to pick them for something. And then again, they have Victor Osimhen.
Mhm.
Well, they were a weird team going into this tournament because they're probably the most disjointed team because up front they look great.
They don't
Particularly
have a defense.
Bonifest got injured.
Mm.
But their midfield, I mean, if you're using Alex Iwobi as a box to box midfielder, you got problems. And this is coming from someone who's kind of like defended Iwobi over the years.
Yeah. Oh, I got nothing but love for
I
Iwobi.
don't
I got
think he's
nothing but
nearly as
love for
bad
him.
as people say he is.
No, I don't
And
either.
defensively, like, look, there are issues. But one thing I will say about Nigeria, they've changed the formation. They're playing with a back five now. Bassi is in the starting 11, and maybe their recipe for success, because they've looked better in the second of the last two matches, is kind of play like Jose Mourinho satanic football, and hope one of the strikers puts one in, and 1-0 it, or 1-1, take it to penalties.
Which is so antithetical to what we
Oh,
know of
it's
Nigerian football,
exactly
which has
Yeah.
always
antithesis.
been attack, 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 run hell for leather, and just
Hmm.
come at you in waves.
Hmm.
I mean, they were kind of the one team where, they almost became the exemplar for this sort of, I almost want to call it xenophobic attitude towards African football, that colonial, the Eurocentric view of African football, where it's like, oh, they're disorganized. They don't play a system. They can't be coached, and they don't know how to play defense. Because when you would watch them play, all they would do would be run forward. And then it was like it took a while for me to realize, no, that's just what the style that they play. That's the most effective style for them to play.
Mhm.
And it's like, we know that we're loaded with speed in the attack. So the best thing that we can do is just keep running, because
Mhm.
that puts more pressure on the other team.
And
Mhm.
when that had the talent, because I think that's the issue with this Nigerian team more than anything. It's just a talent deficiency. Look, I mean, for when I was coming up, Nigeria was the gold standard of African football.
Absolutely.
1994 was my
94. Daniel Amokachi.
I fell in love
Mhm.
with that
Me
team.
too.
And even
Me
in
too.
even though they got pimped up by the Danes in the round of 16,
Yeah.
they in the group
Look,
stage,
after
that match
the
against Argentina was one of the best matches.
look, Nigeria Spain was a fantastic game in
Yep.
'98. Sunday Olise with the late winner with that strike from about 18 yards out. That after the first two matches, they were the best team in the world. They were the best team in the world after those first two matches. And then I think they lost the third game because they were kind of like, we're already in. We already won our group. We're good. And then Denmark came and pieced them up, which was sad but they're yelling for Brazil and all this other stuff, which was that stung me. That stung me. But yes. But Mike, they played the way they've always played, which was successful for them. But the fact that the Danes were able to lock in and just kept them from scoring, and then you got them down. Once they went down 1 or 2-0, that was it. And then they ended up losing 4-1. But it's a shame that happened. I'm sorry. I got a little bit of my feelings here.
No,
But
but
yes,
that was
that's
also,
the
I
way they
remember.
play. But that's just the way they play. And it's a very fun style to watch. And yes, but that team and the subsequent teams of when you had Nwankwo Kanu and that crew, the depth just doesn't seem to be there with Nigeria right now.
But this is also a team that I would have thought might have been better, because weren't they also a team that was in, if they didn't win third place, they were in the bronze medal game in the Olympics back in 2016.
Yes. And they won the Olympics in '96.
Yeah, but
they
that's
won.
In the disconnect with these Nigerian teams. And I have a lot of Nigerian colleagues. And so at the youth level, they're fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But what you start to see is, and this sort of goes back to some of the issues that a lot of these, FAs have, is if you look at the composition of those Nigeria teams that we fondly remember, now you had a good mix of guys who were playing in Europe, but also guys domestically.
Playing in Nigeria.
Apparently, the MO is the Nigerian FA hands whatever manager they have a list of names of guys who play in Europe, and that's just who you select.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys on these youth teams, you never hear about anymore, which is that's a problem. And how you get on the national team, in some ways, Ted Lasso speaks truth. It's like, are you the second cousin of, the oil minister or something? Way better chance of being on the national team than, someone who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's part of the issue. And like, going back to Stead's point, I think you can tell the depth's an issue, because I looked at the squad at the end of the tournament and I was like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Ahmed Musa's still on this team, and I love Ahmed Musa. Old school RPL, CSK Moscow, Ahmed Musa. But he has to be 50, right? Like, no, either that or he came to Russia and they played him when he was 16, because he was on those CSK Moscow teams with like the Berezutsky brothers, Shevich, and those guys. Like, I'm kind of shy. I think that speaks volumes that he's still in the side. We've kind of seen this with Nigeria as of late. Like, it wasn't the last World Cup because they weren't there, but was it 2018 when like the corpse formerly known as John Iwobi Mikel was there just because he was John Iwobi Mikel?
Mhm.
The funny thing that you talk about Ahmed Musa being ancient, he's only 31.
What?
Well,
Yes.
okay.
Wait,
He's
what?
he's listed at 31.
He's listed at 31, having
He's
been
listed at
When did
31.
when did
He could be
sign-
35.
When did he sign with CSKA? I'm just like that
he
boggles
would
my
have signed
mind.
he would have signed right before he was 20.
All right, so he was really young. Okay.
Yeah.
But again, like you're talking about a guy who's played 109 times
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
Nigeria.
At 31. What? At
At
31.
31.
Yes,
So
but
Freddie, you do 31, you know?
some of the players that I'm looking for, like that I would think would be, like you said, you've got Alex Iwobi playing in central midfield. Um,
He's an attacker. Like he's an attacking winger. That's what he is.
all the strength is up at the front, where you
Mhm.
Yeah,
even you know
Look, Ademola Lookman's a solid player.
Ademola Lookman's a solid player.
uh,
Kalichi Iheanacho has
Mhm.
been around forever and a day.
Mhm.
Simeon is where they're going to need to build the team around. But how do you put a team together where you can fit Ahmed Musa, Kalichi Iheanacho, Victor Osimhen, and Ademola Lookman in the team with Alex Iwobi? All five of them are forwards, and
Yeah.
what are you going
not
to
to
play?
mention
And don't forget about Chukwueze.
and Chikwueze and
Mhm.
Boniface got injured right before the tournament. So like
Oh, right. Mhm.
arguably 7 of their best players are all forwards.
Mhm.
Mhm. And so you try and play some sort of like five at the back with two wing backs and a couple of forwards and almost a two-man midfield. But the only thing that you can ask to do is just have those guys run. I would have them run at everybody, but then you don't necessarily have the defenders at the back who have either the club experience or international experience to be exposed like that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
They literally have 5 midfielders on the whole squad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They have 5 because I'm not including Iwobi as a midfielder. Like they only have 5 midfielders on the whole squad.
And none of them are even the corpse of Johnny Obi Mikel, who was taken over for
No.
guys who could really play in the center of the park.
Mm-mm.
They don't even have that.
No. No.
No. Because even Moses Simon, he's a forward. He plays
Yeah,
forward for his
well,
club
that's
team.
purpose.
So they
Yeah.
have no midfield.
It's kind of
Let me check
crazy.
it. They got 4 midfielders on the squad.
It's kind of crazy that they really miss Ndidi.
That was what I was going to
Yeah,
say.
he was the only bona fide defensive midfielder in this squad.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just looking at the squad. I'm going through the squad. I'm just kind of clicking on the players like, oh no, he's actually a forward. They got to shove it.
Everybody on the team is forward.
They're all forwards.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of the forwards they have playing defense, you know?
But this is one of those times where you're like, if only we could negotiate trades
Yeah.
in international soccer. So hey, Nigeria, this is the U.S. men's national team. We have a couple of spare center backs that we'd like to loan you. Can we negotiate a trade? We'll give you, you give us well, we'd love to have Victor Osimhen. We'll give you that and 2 future first-round picks.
Yeah. Dude, this is bonkers. I wonder if any of their goalies actually play forward.
One of their goalies is actually a striker.
Hey man, we saw that with what's his name? The Mexican dude who was 5'6" and played goalie. Campos, is that his name?
Yeah, Victor Campos.
5'6" goalie. He had hops though. He had hops. He get up.
As I recall, he was actually like
He's a
Jorge
striker.
Campos was
But he was
decent.
competent.
Yeah. But he played striker for his club team in Mexico. Yeah.
But so we're starting to, so we have these, I guess what we have, like, if I'm looing at the teams that have already qualified or who we know that we're going to qualify,
Mm-hmm.
I see like one team in Senegal where I'm like, they're doing what I expected them to do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a team um in Morocco where I'm still not 100% sure
Mm-hmm.
where they are. Is this the Morocco? Am I going to get the Morocco that ran through the World Cup next year? Or am I going to get pre-tournament Morocco, which was basically a glorified dumpster fire, and they were about
Mm-hmm.
to get rid of Hakim Ziyech. They were about to drop Hakim Ziyech and Ashraf Hakimi because they were having a fight, and there was all this fallout with the manager and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. In the same boat, Egypt, yeah, they are the 7-time champions, but what is this Egyptian team without Mo
Mm-hmm.
Salah?
Mm-hmm.
Can you really expect them to make it? And then I start to get into the other ones where it's kind of like, so we have tier one would be Senegal, tier two, in with a chance, you could say Morocco and um, Egypt potentially. Then you start to get into this, are they really good enough?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I get the likes of like Nigeria, Cameroon. I guess those are the only two because Cote d'Ivoire is gone, Ghana's
Yeah.
gone. Um, and
Maybe
then
Look,
Mali.
you have Cape
maybe
Verde is
Mali.
playing Mauritania in the round of 16.
But then the thing is, like,
Like that's crazy.
I'm not 100% sure. Like, what is Mauritania and what is Cape Verde has
I
been
haven't the
playing with.
faintest
I have
idea.
no idea.
No idea. I have
So,
no
like we
idea
said,
that's gonna
we've got
happen. But think
Equatorial
about it.
Guinea and
Cape
Guinea
Verde or Mauritania are going to be in the quarterfinal.
finals.
What
Like,
I
that's
will
crazy.
say, what I will say about Cape Verde though, and shout out to my neighbor who I see doing laundry. He is from Cape Verde, and we started talking about this before the tournament. And he did say, and it's true, the last couple tournaments they've been getting increasingly incrementally better,
Okay.
and
I see.
a lot of the squad plays in Portugal.
Okay.
So they're not. I don't. I can't see them winning this thing, but maybe a run at the quarterfinals wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, they have a lot of Portuguese players on that team. Number one, number two. I do remember them in the last tournament. Talking about them as kind of like a surprise entrant into the round of 16, and it is a team that is built as a team. This is
Yeah,
not a team that has necessarily a bunch of stars that come together. They play together, they played together. There isn't a whole lot of turnover. Um, but like you said, I don't think that they can win. Mauritania, Equatorial Guinea, Guinea, like,
Guinea.
I really don't see them
Mm.
going much further than
Yeah.
like you said, Cape Verde or Mauritania, one of them is going to be in the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
Either
but you
Equatorial
look,
Guinea or Guinea is going to
Angola's in the round of 16. Burkina
Angola. I
Faso,
got win.
Burkina Faso always seem to be kind of hanging around.
and
Mhm.
They don't actually win, but they're always around. They're always in.
they're a weird team in this
They're
tournament.
very weird too, but they're always weird. They always seem to be smelling the World Cup or smelling, you know what I mean? They just seem to be around more than you would expect from a team that really doesn't have a whole lot of footballing history on the world stage, but they do seem to be around a lot.
And they have this tendency in this tournament. And is my do you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good. You froze
Okay,
for a minute there, but you're good.
yeah. I was like, oh. They have a tendency in this tournament because remember, weren't they in the semifinals in like
Yes,
2017 or
they
something?
were. They have been. They've
They
semied
they
recently.
start
Yes.
the tournament slow, but then they sort of build momentum. And while a lot of these guys aren't household names, when you look at the squad, there's always like two or three or four guys where it's like, oh yeah, I know him. You know,
Mhm.
they're interesting. And like I said before, and I'm hesitant to say this because I've come to this conclusion. Mali is African Serbia.
Mm.
Time there's a major tournament, I look at that squad, I'm like, they have ballers, and then they disappoint me. But one of these days, usually probably when I'm off them, they're gonna come through. I don't see Mali really as a team that can win it. But if you told me that team got to the semifinal, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right.
But I guess the thing, short
Oh
of
yeah,
somehow
Bertrand
us,
Traore. There's always a Traore on Burkina Faso.
Oh,
At least one or two.
there's
Yeah,
always a
there's at least
Terrari,
two.
and there's always who's that dude who played forever in Eastern Europe? Cabore, Charles
Yeah,
Cabore.
yeah. There's the Issa Kabori now. I'm
Yeah,
looking at this. But you're right though. I'm looking at the squad and I'm going, oh yeah, I've heard
yeah,
of
I
him.
remember
Oh yeah, I
him.
know that
Yeah,
guy.
it's
Yeah,
always like four
you're
or five
right.
guys. Like, okay,
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're exactly right. I'm going, oh wow, I've heard like five of these dudes. That's pretty cool.
but so I think though that one thing that this tournament has shown us is well, two things. Number one, with the expanded African qualifying for the World Cup next in 2026, we have an increased chance of getting one of these teams that we haven't seen traditionally at a World Cup with a chance to emerge. And I do love it when we are able to get new African nations into the World Cup because I
Yeah,
think that they bring
absolutely.
something in there.
Hmm.
Um, you know, no disrespect to um, Egypt, and I love them. They are like, they're regarded as the most dominant team continentally, but their World Cup record is absolutely awful.
It's abysmal.
terrible.
Yeah.
And it would be nice. What if we do get a Cape Verde? What if we do get a Angola? What if we do get Mali? Some
Hmm.
of these teams that we haven't really seen.
Hmm.
I also think that it helps because now, with the way the World Cup qualifying is going, we're going to be able to strengthen these teams a little bit because we're not perpetually going to be in these cycles where one or two of them will automatically get knocked out in qualifying.
Hmm.
Like, I don't care what you say. It's absolutely atrocious last year that Egypt and you could only have one of Egypt or Senegal
Yeah, that was a
because they're
travesty.
playing each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
It made absolutely no sense to me that you would have it set up so that those two ended up having to play each other for the right to go to the World Cup, and therefore you deprive yourselves of an opportunity. Now, granted, um, Morocco went on a run and got to the World Cup semis, and that was big for African football because we've been saying like the Africans are probably of all the other continents that have never won one. African teams seem the most likely to be the ones to do it.
Mm.
Now, it's just been weird with the African Cup of Nations where you seem to have like North African teams do better in the African Cup of Nations, where Western and Sub-Saharan African teams, especially, do better in the World Cup.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true.
And I think that's just a way that how they play. Like,
Hmm.
um, Egypt continentally will just bore you to death. And El Hadji said it. He's like, in a one-off game that they can get you, and that's how they do it. But then when you have to go and play them home and away, it kind of alters the landscape for them.
Hmm.
Um, so we're going to see some teams. The other thing is, I think that goes along with that is we're going to get the evidence is the odds are saying to me that we're probably going to get a surprise entrant into the final, right?
Of this AFCON. I have to agree.
Yeah,
I think that we could, if there's a tournament, because so many of the favorites have question marks, because so many other teams are going out already, it just increase. It's just a numbers thing.
Hmm.
When you think of like how many new teams that we have, one of them, like we said, I don't know the exact bracket. I don't have it in front of me, but if you've got
What else?
Equatorial Guinea and Guinea playing each other, if you've got Mauritania playing Cape Verde, two of them are going to be in the quarterfinals. That gives you a 1 in 4 shot that you're going to have a surprise entrance into the semis.
Hmm.
mhm.
It's just a sheer numbers thing.
You're looking at so you're going to see Egypt is playing runner-up group F, and they're going to be playing Equatorial Guinea or Guinea. So you're going to have and as you said, there's question marks surrounding Egypt like crazy. So yes, you could easily see Equatorial Guinea or Guinea making it to a semifinal. It's the same thing with we still don't know who's going to Cape Verde, Mauritania. We don't know who they're going to be playing because it's winner Group F and winner runner-up Group E. But yeah, and looking at the bracket, And all I'm saying is this: when looking at the bracket, if Senegal does not final, they have completely underachieved because they're at the bottom of this bracket. They should final without too much of a
Well,
problem
hey,
in
look,
looking
you
at the
never know.
bracket.
You never know.
But you never know. Exactly. You never know. I'm just saying,
Alu Cisse
if you
was in.
want, but if you want to look at it from a perspective of what we were talking about as some of the darlings of African soccer, where they're placed, the ones who are in and who are out, and the fact there's question marks surrounding Egypt, they should final in looking at the bracket. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, Alu Cisse was in the hospital a couple of days ago.
Ooh.
He said that he had some sort of benign infection, but he's back with the team, and they
Oh.
lost one of their players to injury.
I
But
thought
as
maybe
long
one
as
of
they've
his
got,
beautiful dreadlocks was out of place and his face was just not perfectly symmetrical and he had to go get some treatment done because he's the most handsome man in Africa right now.
they
Look,
love him. They
I'm
love
not
him.
hating. I'm jealous because I'm bald.
Well, we're going to bring in uh, uh, our good friend Chelsea Mike into the fold. We were just wrapping up our conversation on the African Cup of Nations. I did want to talk to you, Matt, about the Asia Cup, which is going on at the same time.
Yes.
Um, I've not been paying nearly as much attention to the Asia Cup as I have to the African Cup of Nations, but I did see it is as we talked about with the Saharan African teams tending to have an advantage in the African Cup of Nations. It seems like traditionally the Arab teams and the Southwest Asian teams tend to have an advantage in the Asia Cup, and you're starting to see that with Saudi Arabia, Iraq through to the rounds of 16,
Yeah.
and the likes of Korea and Japan, who are typically pretty solid bets to qualify and produce at the World Cup, having a few struggles.
Yeah, it's been a bump and start go for Japan and South Korea. Uh and like you said, it seems to be, I mean, Saudi Arabia's played well. Iraq, they don't really have, let's say, the pedigree of some of these other teams, but
But they've won it.
they've won this tournament. And I'm gonna keep it real. Iran, before the revolution, this was their tournament. And they've been waiting. From what I've seen so far, they've played the most impressive football of this tournament. They are no longer playing satanic football. The ghost of Carlos Queiroz has been exorcised. They're still solid defensively, but they're not like playing seven center backs just because. And in this tournament, when you have Taremi and Asmoon up front as a partnership, that's problems. That's problems.
They were among the stronger um, Asian teams at the World Cup last year, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a defensively stout team. I know that the U.S. won the game with Christian Pulisic sacrificing his future family to score the goal. Um, but it was, let's be honest, it was all that they could do to break that team down.
Yeah.
And they were a few fair bounces away from actually winning that game. And they, yet no, they did not hang in there with England, but they hung around with Wales and stuff, and they definitely showed that this is a team that can play. I'm not sure whether it's the climate, whether it's the time of year where they're playing for the players in the Middle Eastern leagues versus the players in the Far Eastern leagues. Um, you know, Season timing gives them an advantage, but yeah, like you said, Iran's looking really good. Iraq is looking really good. I think pretty much all of the Iraqi players play within the Middle East.
I think all but one. Uh, all but one, I think.
I know and I don't know if Zidane Iqbal is actually playing because he would be he is a Manchester United player, but I don't know if he's on the national team
No,
yet.
I don't believe he's.
So most of them play, and like the Saudis, all the Saudi team players play domestically. Pretty much all of the Iranian players play domestically, there is at times an advantage to being this, and we saw that with how Iran and Saudi Arabia and played in the World Cup. You know, they have that advantage when they're used to playing together in the same league, and so many of them play on the same team in the
Well,
same.
if we're going to talk the Asian Cup, I mean, we also have to talk about the two big stories or, surprises. And one of them, the first one, is absolutely what you just said. Tajikistan, the first ever tournament as an independent nation. Something like 2/3 of the team, the whole team plays domestic. No, excuse me, one guy does play in Kazakhstan. So in a stand, but most of the squad plays domestically, and 2/3 of those guys play for something called Istiklal, that apparently was founded in Dushanbe sometime in the last 15 years. Somehow in a group that included China, which I think before the tournament most people would say, "Oh well, they'll finish second." They managed to somehow get to the round of 16. And I got to be honest, I don't know. We're not certain who they're going to be facing yet, but this is one of those teams where they don't mind taking it 0-0 for penalties. They're very happy just to frustrate you, and they have the. Most of these guys are mystery men to me. I will say this: the goalkeeper Ruslan Yatmitov has impressed the hell out of me, and that this is a hell of a story. I mean, their manager, this Peter Sergit guy, he's like a Croatian hippie who was managing the Maldives last year. Like he's managed everywhere from like Afghanistan to you know, uh, you know, the
So
Maldives.
he's one of those. He's one of those
One
European
of those,
campaigners.
he's one of those Yugoslavian guys that couldn't get work in Europe and then finds work in the, developing world. So, I mean, Tajikistan's a crazy story. And then the big story is, what happened today.
Palestine picking up that one win, first one.
Palestine gets their first win in a major in the Asian Cup of Nations, and they're going to get through to the knockout stages. It's not mathematic, but it's as close to mathematic as humanly possible because they have the 4 points. They have a neutral goal difference, which should do them well. And I have to be honest, they got outfoxed by Iran, but I think Iran's been the best team in this tournament. They should have beat UAE if they could finish their dinner. I swear to God, their forwards look like Lukaku at times. If their front line and particularly Odi Dayuba if he can eat his dinner like he did against Hong Kong, I look, I said before the tournament round of 16 max, which considering where they're coming from and considering what's going on in that is in the world, I think round of 16 is fine. I'd give them a puncher's chance because I think they're gonna, if they do advance, they'll probably play Qatar. And I gotta be honest, Qatar have not they're top of their group, but just barely. It's kind of like Morocco and Africa, where it's like I know you're okay, but you haven't really shown me anything.
And part of it might be look, Qatar of all of these teams probably has as much tournament experience in these sort of pseudo continental tournaments as anybody does. And if there's one thing that they know now, it's like get through to the round of 16 and then worry about what happens from there. You don't need to play your best football in the group stages. You need to be playing your best football in the knockout stages. But no, they don't look impressive. But then we've also, you still got to pay attention to if they get through the Far East teams. Although I don't remember when the last time the tournament would have had to have been in the Far East for one of the Far East teams to have won it, because
that was
if my memory serves me correctly, it's been mostly Middle Eastern teams and Southwest Asian teams that have been picking up the wins. uh, lately. Um,
I think it was. Hold on, let me rack my brain. Japan in like 2012.
yeah, because I know like Iraq has won it since then. I think Saudi Arabia has won it since then. This is a tournament that can give you any of them can. Look, we saw Greece win the Euros. We saw Portugal win the Euros. We've seen Iraq win the African Cup of the Asian Cup. You know, Chile won back to back Copa Americas. Like you can get a surprise team that can win one of these federation tournaments. So it wouldn't be all that surprising for me to see like Iraq win again, Iran win, although Iran looks like the best team, but or even potentially Qatar to break out of their shell, come back and say like, hey, this is what we're actually going to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't totally rule out Uzbekistan either. I don't think they've no Elder Sharamorodov is a problem, but Sergeyev, Amanov are both more than capable. And kudos to the manager for switch. I know it entering the tournament, Uzbekistan was kind of like Central Asian Nigeria, all attack, questions after that. But I think switching to a 5-4-1 has really they look way more balanced. And this is a team that there's talent there. I know we've talked about them in the past on the pod. They're that like sixth or seventh wheel of Asia that, if maybe with the expanded World Cup format, maybe they get in because they've been knocking on that door for a while. But if you put a gun to my head and said, look, Professor Matt, who's going to win the Asian Cup of Nations, at least as of today, I would say Iran. They look like the most complete squad. But don't count out Saudi Arabia. And look,
I was going to bring up Saudi Arabia.
Iran's going to have a test in the round of 16 because we know that they're going to be playing Syria. And while Syria doesn't have particularly like the depth of individual talent, they are a pain in the ass. They have conceded one goal in the tournament so far. And they're okay with a grind you out kind of win. And they have a couple guys like in Asuma who can they can hurt you.
This is the first really big test, and I'll close on this one for Saudi Arabia, since they invested all of this. You can say money, you can say it, but more or less to get the attention for the KSL. It's if they fail to make an imprint on this tournament, you're almost left with this idea like um for those of us who follow it closely, did all of this attention that you brought by signing these big name players to lift the quality of your league, did it actually have the desired effect? Because here it is, it did not make anybody better. Number one, the casual fan, because we know about the Saudi league, when we turn on the Asian Cup finals, we're almost expecting to see Saudi Arabia in it. And if we don't, then it becomes again, why pay attention to Saudi football if they can't even like their national team stinks? What's the point um of paying attention to them anyway? All right, so I want to rope our good friend Chelsea Mike into the conversation. How goes it? Good, sir.
Oh, fares well, my friend. It's been a more optimistic time since we saw you last.
Well, yes, we have seen Chelsea pick up a few points here and there.
Well, they've won 5 of their last 6 matches. The only one not winning being a half fixture that they swiftly made up for today.
So all's going well, and they're finally looking like they can score goals, and Pochettino's relieved a little bit of the pressure. Meanwhile, the Chelsea's women's team looks like they're continuing to do what the Chelsea women's team does.
absolutely murdering Man United. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But
that is what we do. But big blow, of course, with the loss of Sam Kerr to an ACL injury while training over the winter break. Um, I feel really bad for Sam Kerr. She missed a lot of her home World Cup this summer with a nagging ankle injury, or lower leg injury. And now she's going to miss the Olympics with an ACL injury, as well as, a Chelsea team with a very good chance at the Women's Champions League. So it sucks. It sucks for her legacy. And it sucks that she's probably never gonna win a golden ball now at 31, time. I mean, Benzema did it at like 34, but it's it's pretty rare for people getting into their mid 30s. So that that's terrible. But the Chelsea women do have a big match against Real Madrid tomorrow. Win and they go to the knockout round. So I'm still optimistic. Lauren James, she is her. She is the superstar that you need to be thinking about constantly, especially if you're an American and not following the women's game in England as I do. She is her, and she's going to get a chance to shine now.
one of the big developments that came out of, I guess, European women's soccer over the break, we already had known that the Chelsea women's team coach was coming over to take over the U.S. women's team. We talked about that on the podcast in November. The coach of Barcelona leaves Barcelona to come to coach the Washington Spirit. So is this proof once again that kind of the financial might of U.S. soccer, the women's game in the U.S. We may not have the right on all the development. We may not have the right on necessarily the greatest players like we once did. But the one thing that we do have is money. And when we need an answer, we can throw money at the problem more so than anybody else.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, rumors today, I don't think it was finalized, but apparently Chelsea losing our midfielder Jesse Fleming from Canada to the Portland Thorns for an NWSL record of $250,000. So yeah, the new TV deal that the NWSL has signed is going to be a boom for the sport. It's important for the American women's game because I think that we in America like winners, and I think a lot of what has sort of propped up the women's game in the United States is how often we win stuff. So now entering a more competitive era where teams like Spain, teams like England, teams like France, who you're not thinking of, and even teams like Jamaica and Nigeria, who put in good showings, are becoming more competitive. We in America, we still have the money, and this TV deal, you're going to see an increase in salaries. I think you're going to see more players leaving Europe, especially North American players who are in England at the moment, especially, and there's some in France coming here because the money is going to be better.
The reason why, Stead, you and I had talked about this at a point, probably during the 2019 Women's World Cup, when we were watching the emergence of the leagues in Europe, and that they were starting to, I wouldn't say spend a ton of money, but they were spending more money. And we were seeing post COVID that, these players were leaving the cozy confines of the United States to go over and play in Europe, that the teams were getting better, that they were getting more competitive. And we said that, at that point in time, we forecasted that the U.S. women's national team was going to have a problem because the one thing that they'd always been able to bank on was the fact that we had maybe not all of the talent, but we had such a massive player pool that they were always playing against top competition and steel sharp and steel. It seems like, as Mike is bringing up, the advent of this new television deal. And let's be honest, the numbers bear it out. There were a number of weeks and possibly throughout the season where the NWSL games were getting better ratings on CBS and Paramount than the MLS games were when they were being televised. Um, so there is money to be made. We're seeing it. The league is a little bit more sustainable. We've gotten off of the strict salary cap. Players are able to get paid what they want to, and so we're back almost to where we were, where it's like, if when in doubt, just throw money at the problem. And now we've got probably the best coach in the world managing the U.S. women's national team, and we've got one of the preeminent coaches in women's club soccer managing the team in the nation's capital. Oh, and by the way, that team just happens to be home to Trinity Rodman, who's probably going to be the next big superstar for the U.S. women's national team.
Oops. Is that to me? Oh, is that to Chelsea Mike? I wasn't sure.
Well, that I was still,
Yeah.
you and I had that conversation. So
Yeah.
I'll come in first and then I'll get Mike.
Yeah, I mean, look, sadly in the world of sports, money solves all the problems, right? I mean, or else you wouldn't have places
That's
like
the one, especially when it comes to women's sports. The fact that we can throw more money at the problem than anybody else has been what has sustained us for so long.
Yeah, but when you look at I think internationally how the growth of the game is occurring, you can parallel that with other sports. I mean, let's not forget when for a long time, where did women's basketball players go to actually make their money? It
They
wasn't in the
still go to
United
Europe.
States. Yeah, they still go to Europe. You go to Europe, that's where you make your money. Especially you go to Eastern Europe, you go to Russia. And so again, it's that kind of ping pong thing back and forth. But you're going to see things like NIL with women's basketball. That's going to change the landscape of women's basketball in the United States. So but my point is just to draw a parallel where it's because of where women's football is in its growth and as just a viable consumed entity, you're going to have various organizations and countries and lands who are going to vie to kind of take control at any given time. So I think that's probably why we're seeing this shift. Because look, Mike, we had this discussion. That was what, 4 or 5 years ago, but it made perfect sense, didn't it? Made perfect sense. And for a while we were right. But again, it's who's willing to stroke the check. And as far as the players are concerned, go where the money is.
Yeah, but I think it's a lot easier to convince people to stay at home. One of the reasons why you see so many of the stars playing the female basketball players playing in the WNBA is because they want to play in front of their friends and family.
Of course. And let's not forget,
basketball season works differently. They can actually play over in Eastern Europe for half the year, make their
exactly.
And here, the women's soccer players don't have that luxury.
And right now they don't, but we could easily see that change. That could change.
Hey, if they want to switch to something like a franchise model like international cricket where you do short-term tournaments.
And that may be a better way to do it. It might be, because look, the point isn't, I think from the, Chelsea, Mike, look, I'm not going to act like I know an iota about women's football in comparison to what you and Rob follow. I don't follow the game. I flat out don't follow it because I just don't have the time. And there are other sports that I like outside of soccer that I follow closely, and I follow the men and the women in those sports as well. So I don't want it to seem like I have some sort of bias against women's sports, because I clearly don't. But I don't think it's bad to set things up in a manner that will allow these athletes to maximize their earning potential while they're in their athletic prime. I think that's a positive thing. And if that means that we have this maybe not the most consistent model which is the dominant league in the world, which is the dominant way these girls get paid, get these damn girls paid and get them their exposure, because all that's going to do is make things easier for the girls who are coming up behind them. So we have more and more and more players who are wanting to play. Yes, I am a girl dad. I have a 4-year-old little girl. Is she going to play soccer? Probably probably not. I'm kind of seeing the sports that she likes already. Sadly, is I can't let her watch MMA fighting anymore because she starts to punch me in the face and she laughs about it. So hopefully, she might be an atom weight as small as she is. But the point is that whatever model seems to work at that time to get the exposure and the sponsorships and to grow their game, they have to take it because, like it or not, women's football is still in a relative, not infancy. I would say it's probably late elementary school because look, it's good that the United States isn't gonna win all the time. That's good. It's good that that's not happening anymore because I'll be honest with you, when the United States is super dominant, I was even less interested because I was like, these are a bunch of because we all know who the players were. All the players they all come from the same general background, from the same general neighborhood, from the same socioeconomic background. That's who all those players were, every single one of them. And I know because I played youth soccer in the United States and I traveled with the girls' teams and we all knew where they were from. We all knew. And the boys' teams were not from the same ilk because luckily for me, I come from a family that actually did have some relative wealth. I lived next door to all those girls. I know where they came from. My teammates didn't. So now that we're seeing that that's not the case anymore, you're seeing the game has grown to the point where you're seeing girls from all different socioeconomic backgrounds enjoying and advancing the game. You got to do whatever you can do to keep the growth of the game going. You want people to see this as an outlet. You want those people to see this as an opportunity. Keep growing the game. If that means that you have a great season that occurs in North America that occurs during these 6 months, and then you can go over here and play during these 6 months, and you have your international tournaments, you take your breaks from your clubs, whatever you got to do it and get these girls paid because they deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, as a women's soccer fan, I particularly like that I can, watch the over the winter season with my Chelsea women, and then through the summer you get your NWSL. So you've got a constant stream going on. I mean, it's that with the MLS as well. But for some reason, the MLS just doesn't seem to integrate as well into like the European year.
Hey, Chelsea, Mike, can I ask you a question though? Because that's a very good point, but I feel like the level of performance between MLS to what their counterparts are in Europe is just vastly obvious. Would you say that is that similar though? Would you see the same level of play with the NWSL as you do with the women's leagues in Europe?
Oh yeah, you do. I think
which would make that switch a lot easier to follow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really close between the NWSL and the WSL in England. Like the play is incredibly comparable. In La Liga Feminine too, it's kind of Barcelona dominant, but I think you're seeing, and I watched some Barcelona women's games. They're just fun. I mean, when they're winning 8-0, they're just out there showing you stuff too. I mean, it's a fun 8-0 to watch. It's it's pretty cool, but there's stuff that needs to happen with the growth in some of the European leagues, but WSL, NWSL, pretty much I would say 1A, 1B, and almost like pick them as to what's the better competition. Yeah, that certainly plays into it because when you go from watching Champions League football, the Titans of Europe to San Jose versus Colorado,
it's hard.
You notice the difference. You notice the difference really quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But what I mean, I think the next big step though would be to institute some sort of a women's club World Cup like we're doing for the men.
That would be cool.
Because at some point in time,
that'd be really cool.
Be able to see what would happen. And I think that would be a big step forward for women's soccer as a whole.
Yeah, and that would draw people like me who are soccer fans, but may not have carved out the time to really pay close attention to women's soccer. That would draw me in. I can honestly say that because it's not the World Cup. Because with the World Cup, I think.
Well, with the World Cup, it's a national thing.
Yeah, and a club thing. Yeah, and I don't know. And I've said this too on this show several times. I think the worst thing that happened to the U.S. soccer for me was the fact that I can now watch club football every weekend because my interest in US soccer has really, really waned. It's just not the same anymore. And yeah, I'd much rather watch US players. But it's funny because I love watching US based players play for their club teams in Europe.
Mhm.
I love to watch that. But my interest in how well US, we've come on this show several times where they had a game and I was like, oh, I had no idea. So,
Well, the thing is,
I would really enjoy, I think, watching the best women's players from around the world on their club teams and have them have a tournament together. That would be a lot of fun.
I think one of the things that we're looking at though is in you know, all of us to a certain extent are old school baseball fans.
Absolutely.
Remember an era before interleague baseball where the only time that you ever got to see these guys play against each other outside of a World Cup was an All-Star game.
All-Star game. Yep.
And so that brought it out. And because of the way the new pay scale is going to work for WSL, we're going to see more of the American players staying at home. So the only time that you get to see these players play against each other would be in some sort of international tournament of that ilk, because you're going to have Barcelona be mostly Spanish players. You're going to have the Washington Spirit be mostly East or Western Hemisphere based players, and predominantly U.S., Canada, and then probably the Caribbean islands based players. And the only time that you would ever get to see something like that, and then it would be and you would be able to make a legit argument as to, like Mike said, you're dealing with one and 1A. Who is the best club team in the world? Is it the team that wins NWSL, or is it the champions of Europe? And like have a Super Bowl. And I think that would be a really well watched game.
So I agree with you, and I think the women's game needs something like that. In fact, I've been arguing that, Barcelona should come over and play here. Here's the problem though. The women's calendar, unlike the men's calendar, also includes the Olympics. So if you recall in 2022, um, in 2022, they had the Euros, right? And they had continental tournaments. Last year, there's the World Cup. This year, there's the Olympics. So summers are kind of off the table. I think what they need to do is take something like the She Believes Cup off the table, which is just a thing the United States Soccer Federation created for us to win a trophy every year. Take that off the table and take those 2 weeks and put it in there in like the early fall part of the schedule, which that will be kind of inconvenient for European teams, but I say just cut out one of those international breaks, and let it be sort of, mix mash club time, because that to me is really the only way that you can kind of fit that into the women's soccer calendar.
It's yeah. At the same time, though, Stead, I know that we'll be talking more about it come up later on, and it doesn't happen as frequently because with the Olympics being part of an international tournament every year opposite. So you have a World Cup, then you have a Women's World Cup. You have a Women's World Cup, then you inevitably have the Olympics the next year. I understand that, but instead we're going to talk about the Six Nations, right? And
we're going to have a standalone show on that, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm looking at some of these guys who are getting ready to play for the Six Nations, and they have played a grand total of 2 rugby games for their club since the
World Cup.
Since the World Cup.
Damn. That's not a lot.
Like James Lowe will be going on Ireland duty this week, and he has played twice for his club team. Now, granted, he took all the time that he was humanly possibly entitled to, and then a couple of other days off of that after that. But a lot of these guys who are going to be suiting up have played limited amount of club rugby since the Rugby World Cup. They get around that. the club teams were still playing during the World Cup, just without their stars, right? I don't think that it would be as big a deal. You could, at some point in time, you just have to say, this is what we're going to do. This is the best time to make it work, and we're going to try and figure out a way to make it work. And you guys are going to work around us because this is what it needs. All right, Mike, I know that we're going to be running short on time. I want to touch on the lower leagues a little bit, because the one thing that we can count on as the winter doldrums and winter breaks throughout Eastern Europe, and the big leagues over in Northern Europe and Western Europe are just starting to start up again. The one thing that is constant is the lower leagues play. And we had a chance to see some of them the last couple of weeks in the FA Cup. Wrexham continue to do Wrexham things. We have some interesting lower league teams that are through that will be playing this weekend in the FA Cup. The competition for spots at the top of the championship looks like it's starting to look increasingly like the three teams that went down last year are the ones that are likely to come up this year, which is a bit of a bummer because we still want to see Ipswich in the Premier League.
They're hanging on.
But so give us an update. What should we be watching for as far as lower league teams in the FA Cup this weekend, and general what's going on in the leagues below the Premier League?
Yeah, well, what I really wanted to talk about, and I should do a standalone FA Cup preview show. I don't know if I will get to it, but what I really wanted to talk about this week was actually what's happening at the bottom of League One. Right. So recently there was an ugly incident at Reading. Reading are unhappy with the way that their direction is headed. And one thing you want to talk about constancy in the lower leagues. One thing that's constant is that when you get mad about the way your team's going, what you're going to do is protest, and how they love to protest in the lower leagues is to invade pitches and make matches get canceled. And so that's what happened at Reading over a couple weeks ago. Reading are sitting in the drop zone of League One. Reading not What's really surprising about this to me is Reading is not a particularly proud franchise. They've only spent 3 total years in the top flight. But they are situated in the drop zone right now. And yeah, the incident got ugly at about 16 minutes into the match. They started throwing ping pong balls and tennis balls on the pitch. And when that got the attention of everybody, they invaded, forcing the cancellation of the match. Reading were given a suspended 3-point sentence. So if something like this happens again, they'll get docked 3 points. They were not immediately docked 3 points, but it's really interesting to me. You see Reading, a team who was in the championship last year, looking like they're doing the double drop. To see that kind of passion there, I suppose it's good, but it's another ugly incidents that you only really get in lower league football. Reading did win today. They beat Derby County to pick their hopes back up. But that's what I'm watching for. I'm watching now to see if Reading can come back. We had similar fan protests at Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday themselves still in the drop zone. They've turned it around to a level of constancy that they're treading water. They're not really picking it up, looking like they're going to drop as well. So that's foreign owners, while awesome in the Premier League, for buying teams that are fully capable of absolutely murdering Middlesbrough at home. They tend not to get they tend not to get the same respect in lower leagues, especially when their teams aren't doing well.
I was actually
So
gonna
two similar
ask-
situations.
I was actually going to ask you really quick, Mike, about the situation with the Wednesday. Has their owner like said more ridiculous stuff, or is he just there and angry now?
No, there haven't. If he has, it's been more low key about it.
Okay.
I think the blowback, the change in the manager. I think the manager probably came in and said, "Look, you got to chill out. Like, I'm not coming and taking this job if you don't chill the heck out." Um, so I think it's stabilizing there, and like I said, the play is consistent, but it's consistently not good enough to kind of get them over the drop. But if you want, since you brought up Ipswich Town, Mike, if you want one match to watch, and every match in the FA Cup is available on ESPN Plus, we have there's there's an absurd amount of Friday matches, including Tottenham Man City, which would probably be considered the match of this round. That's Friday at 3 Eastern. Chelsea Villa is another good one, also Friday 2:45 Eastern. But the early match on Saturday, you want to watch Ipswich? How about them taking on Maidstone United, a non-league side? You know, in the championship perspective, Ipswich double rise to the top. They're the underdogs, but in this case, on Saturday morning, 7:30 ESPN Plus, they are the ones who are going to try to put Cinderella to bed. So that's who I'm watching for. That's what I want to see. Of course, you got your two big Premier League matches on Friday as well. So fun weekend coming up in the FA Cup.
For those of you out there who like, welcome to Wrexham. Wrexham are in second right now, very much looking like they're going to get promoted again, double promotion up to League One. Even before, they were a non-league team playing with a League One budget. So now they're going to be a League One team playing with a League One budget. Amongst other things that we very much enjoy talking about, our favorite vegan football team has apparently run out of energy now, Mike. Forest Green looking very much like they're going to fall out of the league. When we last spoke to you, Wayne Rooney had gotten a job at Birmingham City. Now that we speak to you again, Wayne Rooney has lost a job at Birmingham City. But such is life in the championship, or in the lower leagues, where coaches have the average lifespan of a second lieutenant in the Vietnam War. So good luck with that. All right, gentlemen, it's about time for us to put this show to bed. And by that, I mean it's about time for us to let Stead go to bed.
Or try to get my son to go to bed. It's the real issue.
It's been an enjoyable 2 hours with y'all. So I want to thank Professor Matt for coming on and talking about the African Cup of Nations, the Asian Cup, and Chelsea Mike talking a little bit about women's soccer and the lower leagues, and of course producer Stead for jumping in, producing, keeping the trains running on time. Very enjoyable return to the new year and the continuity that the pod brings. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for your participation. For the Casters Too Many Guys Soccer Show, I'm Mike. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next week.